Re- Recording in progress.
Hola, muy buenos días. ¿Qué tal? Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. Estaba en mute y yo estaba hablando. Perdón. Buenos días, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Iniciamos. Es un gusto estar aquí el día de hoy con todas las fintechs que están participando en este evento de promoción de Fintech Week Hong Kong. Muchísimas gracias a King Leung de Invest Hong Kong, que está también el día de hoy. Nos va a presentar sobre este evento de Fintech y sobre el ecosistema Fintech aquí en Hong Kong. Muchísimas gracias a la gente de Fintech México. Ernesto Calero, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí, por apoyarnos en la coordinación y la promoción de este evento. Y también muchísimas gracias a Finovacia, que están organizando Fintech Week. Algunas notas de housekeeping. Este webinar será bilingüe con algunas intervenciones en inglés y en español. No tenemos traducción simultánea, pero si tienen alguna duda, con gusto nos pueden preguntar a través del chat. También les pedimos, si tienen preguntas, también las compartan en el chat y las iremos tratando de responder al final de cada sesión. No quiero tomar mucho tiempo a los panelistas, pero me gustaría compartir algunos datos interesantes sobre el ecosistema FinTech en Hong Kong para las empresas que están participando hoy. Como saben, Hong Kong es una economía abierta con acceso a los mercados de China continental y el sureste de Asia. Tenemos el acceso a China continental, que como saben ha sido el único país que ha logrado registrar, China continental y Vietnam, que lograron registrar tasas altas de crecimiento a pesar del COVID. China es el líder en adopción de fintechs por parte de los consumidores. Y Hong Kong forma parte de la región de la Gran Bahía, que tiene una población de 86 millones de personas y un PIB combinado de 1.6 billones de dólares en 2020. Es el ingreso más alto de China como país. En cuanto al acceso al sureste de Asia, más del 70% de los adultos de la región sureste de Asia no tienen acceso a servicios bancarios. Esto es aproximadamente 400 millones de personas, lo que representa una gran oportunidad para el sector fintech. Hong Kong, a pesar de que es una ciudad de 7.5 millones de habitantes, muy pequeña, tenemos un sector financiero muy fuerte. Tenemos una presencia de más de 160 bancos, más de 160 aseguradoras, con más de 800 brokers. Tenemos más de 800 gestores de activos y más de 300 agentes de valores y futuros. Tenemos también la presencia de 8 bancos virtuales y también 4 aseguradores virtuales. Las categorías en el sector fintech que están creciendo más son fintech, creditech, insurtech y freshtech. Y 44% de las empresas que están aquí en Hong Kong en el sector fintech son de extranjeras, mientras que el 56% son de Hong Kong y China continental, lo que representa una gran participación de extranjeros en este sector. Conforme a capital y fondos, también tenemos en el año 2020, las empresas del sector fintech lograron levantar 243 millones de dólares de capital privado y el gobierno tiene obviamente tiene una presencia importante. Perdón, tenemos ruido por aquí. Les pido por favor si pueden apagar su micrófono. Y tenemos también el gobierno de Hong Kong también como parte de la estrategia para impulsar el sector. Fintech ha creado un esquema independiente de impuestos para el sector fintech, así como otros subsidios para la contratación de personal y para apoyar al sector, además de un montón de programas de aceleración, incubación, de parques industriales y de asociaciones de fintech. Entonces, sin más, le voy a dar la palabra a Ernesto, quien nos va a platicar un poquito sobre, va a hacer unas palabras de instrucción sobre Fintech México. Muchísimas gracias, Ernesto. Adelante.
Hola, muchas gracias, Susana. Buenas tardes a todos. Buenos días por allá también. Bueno, primero que nada, soy Ernesto Calero, director general de la Asociación Fintech México. Y bueno, pues primero que nada, agradecer a MexCham y a todos los organizadores de este evento por darnos la oportunidad como Fintech México de participar, de ser aliados en tan importante evento. Como bien comentaba Susana, China, Hong Kong y toda la región son pioneros y tienen un crecimiento muy importante en temas fintech y creemos que es muy importante que el ecosistema fintech de México tenga presencia ya, pueda participar en este tipo de eventos y conocer de primera mano la innovación, la tecnología, las formas las formas en que se están haciendo las cosas por allá, explorar oportunidades de tener operaciones allá y conocer realmente al ecosistema, ¿no? Yo creo que hoy en día el tema de la globalización es importantísimo. Si bien aquí en México, y como la mayoría de ustedes saben, en México en particular también ha habido un crecimiento muy importante en el sector. Tan solo en 2021, a finales del 2021, se tenían identificadas más de 500 fintechs, lo que representa más o menos un crecimiento del 16% respecto al 2020 y de más del 100% si lo comparamos respecto a 2017, que es el año justo previo antes de que se publicara la ley fintech. Lo que vino a traer, además de muchos otros factores, trajo certeza jurídica a todos los participantes. Pero es importantísimo que sigamos promoviendo este ecosistema, no solo en México, como decía, la parte internacional, la parte de globalización es importantísima y tener la oportunidad de participar de alguna u otra forma en este tipo de eventos, en eventos de esta magnitud, yo creo que suma mucho a todos los interesados, a todo el ecosistema. Mientras más empresas participen, compartan sus experiencias y puedan internacionalizarse y si es posible, traer su experiencia, su conocimiento para seguir promoviendo aquí en México la innovación, la tecnología, la inclusión financiera, la competencia, pues es una gran oportunidad. Entonces, nada más nuevamente agradecer a los organizadores por permitir a Fintech México formar parte de un evento de esta magnitud. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ernesto, y bueno, nos da mucho gusto trabajar con ustedes en este evento. So now I will give share the screen with King. Please, King, thank you very much for being here. King is the head of Fintech of Invest Hong Kong. Invest Hong Kong is the Hong Kong agency in charge of promotion of investment into the city. So thank you very much, King, for being here today with us.
Thank you so much for the kind invitation by Susanna and Ernesto. It's a great pleasure to share with your members and other friends on the call. I guess a good way to start introducing the fintech landscape is that by looking at the opportunities. There are lots of things happening in Hong Kong. I just want to perhaps start with sharing with the audience on the call about the various segments of fintech in Hong Kong. So at the moment, we have roughly 600 plus organizations engaging in fintech activities. As you can see from this slide, we have a pretty diverse representation. Therefore, there are opportunities for everyone, whether that be in RegTech, in credit tech, digital asset, insurtech, wealth tech, and payment, and so on. We have a pretty wide representation. Now, and then on the little pie chart on the right, you'll also see that we have a pretty nice mix of professionals from different parts of the world. So obviously, being in Hong Kong, they are quite a good size of the founders from Hong Kong or mainland China. But actually, 44% of the founders of the fintech firms in Hong Kong are actually from all around the world. Okay. Now, so perhaps another way to look at the opportunities available in Hong Kong is to look at Hong Kong as a B2B fintech market. Now, so obviously, Hong Kong is an international financial center. Therefore, we have quite a lot of financial institutions around the world that have set up in Hong Kong over the past many decades. Now, I won't go through all the numbers in detail, but as you can see, that we have a pretty even distribution of a lot of the major segments. The wealth management, the banks, the insurance companies, brokers, and so on. If you just basically add up all these even financial institutions themselves, you're talking about thousands of financial institutions. So therefore, if you are engaging in B2B fintechs, this is a pretty attractive market for you. Now, another aspect that I'd like to share with you is about the Fintech 2025 strategy laid out by our de facto central bank and also the banking regulator, HKMA, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. Essentially, in the middle part of last year, in June, they laid out this Fintech 2025 strategy, in which they have identified 5 important things that they would like the financial institutions in Hong Kong to do. And first and foremost, all banks go fintech, because they meaning the regulator really wants the banks to take the lead and lead by example by embracing fintech, by buying different fintech technologies and partnering with fintech firms and things like that. Now, it's not just a slogan, okay? So the regulator did follow through. So over the next 6 months, since they launched that strategy in the middle part of last year, the banks were asked to do homework about what the banks see in terms of the future adoption roadmap from 2022 onwards to 2025. So what are the things that they feel that they need to do so that they're able to, in a way, upgrade the competitiveness of the banks? Now, so interestingly, after all the banks submitted their proposals about the digital transformation plan by the end of last year, 2021, actually HMA took around 5-6 months to really analyze the data that they received back. And then they recently, as a matter of fact, just June this year, just last month, they released the results in the form of a tech baseline assessment report. Now, and I just extracted a few charts to just share a few major observations to all of you. Now, first, when the HMA looked at all the banks, actually, to no surprise, the mid-sized banks are the ones that are most, I would say, enthusiastic about embracing fintechs. And the reason can be more easily understood, because the big banks, the global banks, they probably have been adopting fintechs all along anyway, because of the global push. Whereas the smaller banks, they probably may not have as much resources, but nonetheless, the small-sized banks are still embracing it. But mid-sized banks are telling us that over the next few years, in terms of growth versus the previous period between 2018 to 2021, so the same like about 3-4 year period, actually they are going to increase the adoption by, as you can see in the chart, the bar in the middle, by over 80%. So over 80% of more investment into fintech over the next few years compared with the prior period. Okay, now, and this is actually quite encouraging. Now, the other thing that we found very encouraging is that when HMA released the results, they also asked the banks to basically identify the different fintechs that they would like to bring in to the banks. So of course, I think RegTech, regulatory technology, no surprise, because the banks really wants to sort of make things more automated and also, I guess, get themselves more compliant. But the two things I want to point to your attention is that besides RegTech being the biggest segment, payment tech, which is something that I believe in my last trip to Mexico City, I talked to quite a good number of your fellow fintech peers. actually quite a lot of fintech firms I met in Mexico have been in the payment space. So this is also an area that the banks are very enthusiastic in working with partners so that they're able to upgrade their capabilities. So PayTech is like number 2 in terms of the enthusiasm, if you will. Now, the second key point is about the highest growth segments, which I highlighted in the bottom. So green tech and legal tech. So those are the areas that you see like 121%, 92%. Those are like really amazing upside over the next few years. Okay, now, and then you may ask, well, okay, so this is great, but then what are there any other incentives from governments to promote even more fintech adoption? And the answer is absolutely yes. So last year, the Policy Bureau in Hong Kong, its name is the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, FSDB. So they have launched this fintech proof of concept subsidy scheme. Now, essentially, I think the gist of it is that they understand, the Policy Bureau understands that the banks, despite the fact that they really want to embrace and work with fintech partners, but the internal procurement process is just so long, right? It takes like forever. So that's why they think, okay, perhaps by offering the subsidy, which basically just pays for the POC, upward to the amount of 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, which works out to be around, say, 13,000 Hong Kong. So that amount basically pays for POC to the FI to encourage them to work with the fintech companies to try something out, okay? Now, and the numbers are very encouraging. Despite the fact that this program was launched for the first time last year, 93 projects were approved, right, based on about 160 applications. So the approval rate was quite high. Now, and then there's a little pie chart in the bottom that basically show you the various fintech segments of technologies that the banks actually tried out in the POC scheme. Again, wealth tech, reg tech, insurtech, pay tech, these are the major ones. Now, again, furthermore, we have many organizations across the Hong Kong fintech ecosystem that run various accelerators intended to help the fintech firms to get things started quicker. So HKSCP stands for the Hong Kong Science Technology Parks, which is the science park of Hong Kong. They have an accelerator program that they work with the banks, insurance company, and so on. Now, and then if you just move down clockwise, there's the Global Fast Track program run by our team at Invest Hong Kong. So this is like a year-round program. Again, we're trying to connect the fintechs with the financial institutions. And there are other programs from Singapore and also other private sector champions, from Alibaba to Accenture, Zurich, and so forth. So there are many programs that are there to help you to ease your way into the ecosystem. Now, and you may ask, well, actually, who are the buy side, right? Who are the buy side companies? Now, this is a snapshot of the alumni from our Global Fast Track 2021 alumni. Now, I guess if you just have a quick glance, you probably notice quite a lot of the international names. You have from HSBC, you got JP Morgan, the Morgan Stanley, the Goldman Sachs, the Citibank, and also insurance companies, AIA, the Generali, and so forth. Now, but at the same time, we also have a lot of the mainland Chinese banks also participated. So essentially, this is a very good group of, I would say, ready buyers. So these firms, they're ready to work with fintech companies to partner with them to help also their own internal digitization strategy. Oh, one thing I want to highlight, actually 85% of the logos that you see here make their fintech decision locally in Hong Kong, as opposed to having to call up some bosses in New York or London. Okay, now the other thing is about the investors. So obviously, if you do want to expand to Asia, besides lending anchor clients, you also want the access to the investors. So we actually have recruited, actually by now we have exceeded 30 investor champions. So these are the investor champions that write smaller checks, like $500,000 US, all the way up to like 50 million US and up. So essentially, this is a pretty good representation that cover the whole spectrum in terms of check size. And all these logos that you see here are interested about investing in fintech companies. And oh, and by the way, they represent not just VCs and angels, but they also represent family offices, corporate ventures, as you may see, the city, Standard Charter, SC Ventures, GAX, reinsurance company, and so on. Now, talking about the fundraising, we also have to share with you about two aspects. Now, on the left, you see a pie chart, and that is basically a representation of the private capital pool in the entire Asia Pacific. And actually, obviously, China being the big Goliath, they are representing the biggest funding pool of private capital. But actually, Hong Kong, even though we're part of China, we would like to also highlight the fact that we're actually sitting in second. So we represent like 14% of all the capital available in Asia. Okay. And by the way, this study was done for us by PwC, because we commissioned a study and asked PwC to do some sort of market sizing and information gathering for us. It's very helpful. Now, if you have the ambition to go IPO, fabulous. Actually, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has been ranked #1 in terms of the largest IPO market in 7 of the past 12 years. So this is another route of fundraising via the capital market. Now, even more funding schemes. Again, I won't go into details. Again, I can send a deck to Susanna and Ernesto, and then they can share the deck with you, so you don't have to memorize all these facts. But basically, we have summarized the various government funding schemes, right? From R&D to hiring, business developments. The chances are there will be some funding from governments that will be helpful for you. And definitely, because there's just so many, if you are really interested, and talk to our colleagues, because I see that my colleague, for example, Cecilia, who help us to support the fintech firms in the Americas, she will be there to also help you out. Okay, now talk about the Global Fast Track Program as a way to help you connect with the potential buyers, i.e. the banks, the insurance companies, and potential investors. You may ask, well, where do we start? Well, actually, it's very simple. You just click the link that you see up here, globalfasttrack.hk, and then hit the Apply Now button. You just spend, I would say, 50 minutes. You just fill information about your firm, and then you're in. And there's no fee. This is a service provided by the Hong Kong government to also serve not just the local fintech firms, but also fintech firms around the world who are interested to explore the Hong Kong market. So it's free and it's very quick. Once you join in, then we'll basically get you going. Now, and then another way for you to learn more about the Fintech Week, about the Hong Kong Fintech ecosystem and the opportunities is to participate at the Hong Kong Fintech Week. Now, we are running the Fintech Week on the October 31st through the 4th of November. And the two main days of conferences will be on the first 2 days, so October 31st and November 1st. Again, you can go to click the link, go to our website, and take a look about the contents, the speakers, and so on. Now, there's one thing that's more directly relevant to you, because again, by working with the chambers, the consulates, we actually try to offer like a special package, make it very affordable for the international friends to join us in Hong Kong. So again, I put a link here, and also I believe my colleague Emma is also online. So in case you have any question, let us know. But basically, this is like heavily subsidized program to basically make it easier for international fintech players to get a feel, to come to Hong Kong and get a feel about the week, meet the different people. We can also do it online. It doesn't have to be physical. Of course, we'd love you to be here in Hong Kong to be with us. And with that, I guess I'll just probably just pause here, because I'm sure that I'm just bombarding you with too much information, and there might be questions among the audience. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the easiest way. I mean, it's very easy. King Leung, Invest Hong Kong, and you'll find me. And we can basically get connected, and I'll point you to our appropriate colleagues to help you out. Now, so with that, perhaps I'll just stop here, and I'll see if the audience have any questions.
Thank you very much, King. Very, very interesting, the presentation that you shared with us today related to the schemes, the fintech ecosystem in Hong Kong, and how can foreign companies join this ecosystem if they're interested in internationalizing their business into the Asia region. Thank you very much, very interesting. ¿Hay alguna pregunta de la audiencia para King? No por el momento. Bueno, quisiera hacer aquí
Can you put back
sí.
the contact info, please? The
Okay.
last slide.
No
Sí,
problem.
la podemos compartir con ustedes. Ahí está.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Es un screenshot, adelante. Gracias. Y queremos también regresar, si podemos regresar a la presentación, Carla, del flyer. If we can, Ok, perfecto. Y bueno, queremos, el motivo de este evento era, además de compartirles qué es el ecosistema de FinTech en Hong Kong, queríamos también invitarlos a participar en Hong Kong Fintech Week, como parte de los acuerdos que tenemos con los organizadores de Fintech Week, como ya lo mencionó King, en MexCham va a tener un pabellón virtual en este evento y queremos invitarlos a participar a las empresas FinTech sin costo para participar en este evento, en donde es el pabellón virtual, donde habrá material, podemos postear material corporativo de las empresas, promovemos empresas en las publicaciones de FinTech Week, y bueno, tendrán la oportunidad de participar en el programa Global Fast Track, que es el que comentaba King, que es un programa de aceleración virtual, y que además ofrecemos pases virtuales digitales para participar en las conferencias. El evento es toda una semana, entonces hay bastantes invitados. Los invitamos a que vean la página web de FinTech Week, y si están interesados, nos contacten para que podamos inscribirlos en este pabellón. Tenemos espacio para 5 fintechs para participar en este evento. Y ahorita le voy a dar la palabra a Víctor Aguilar, quien es el representante de Invest Hong Kong en México, con quien también se pueden acercar para cualquier pregunta o duda que tengan sobre estos eventos de fintech aquí en Hong Kong. Víctor, bienvenido, muchas gracias por estar aquí.
¿Qué tal, Susana? Gracias por la invitación y pues gracias por estar aquí el día de hoy, todo el público del mundo FinTech. Con FinTech México ya hemos trabajado en el pasado varias veces, yo creo que desde hace como 6 años hemos colaborado con FinTech México. Acabo de poner mis datos en el chat, cualquier cosa que necesiten. Yo estoy en México, tengo contacto directo con King en forma regular, y también tenemos una persona en San Francisco, ¿no? Que por aquí anda Cecilia Chan, que está encargada de tema FinTech para las Américas. Entonces, entre nuestra oficina aquí en México, la de San Francisco y Hong Kong, con King podemos ayudarles en su interés en el mundo FinTech en Hong Kong. De hecho, ya hemos ayudado a varias empresas a hacer el soft landing por allá en Hong Kong, ¿no? Y nos encantaría poderles ayudar. Está en un proyecto interesante, poder hablar con ustedes el día que ustedes gusten. Muchas gracias por el tiempo, Susana.
No. Gracias, Víctor, por estar aquí. Víctor, como comentamos, es el representante de Invest Hong Kong en México, y él, no solo para el sector FinTech, sino para cualquier sector que sea de su interés para invertir en Hong Kong. Víctor y su equipo Aurora pueden orientarlos en estos temas. Y finalmente quería presentar también a la maestra Carla Loyo. Carla Loyo es nuestra representante de Mexican Chamber of Commerce Hong Kong en México. También se pueden acercar con ella para cualquier duda, estamos en Hong Kong, entonces los horarios están raros, pero con Carla Loyo en tiempo real pueden acercarse con ella también para cualquier duda o información que requieran sobre esta participación en el FinTech Week, en el pabellón de MexCham. Tenemos una pregunta de Judith. Judith, adelante.
Muchas gracias, Susana. Gracias a todos. Yo estoy en External Affairs con Clip, y justo mi pregunta es, nosotros también, para asegurarnos de que podamos hacer una oferta que le aporte valor a la FinTech Week y que tenga sentido nuestra participación, pues quisiéramos conocer un poco más de qué se espera de quienes queremos participar con nuestro pabellón virtual, ¿no? ¿Qué tipo de contenido tendríamos que generar? Y sí, básicamente las características de esa participación. Entonces, me imagino, ¿nos acercamos con Susana o nos acercamos con Víctor? ¿Cuál sería la mejor forma de hacer ese contacto?
Para aclarar, Víctor representa Invest Hong Kong, entonces
Ok.
Con Víctor, el equipo de Víctor pueden platicar sobre el sector fintech en Hong Kong y sobre y otros eventos que hay del sector aquí en Hong Kong. El pabellón lo estamos organizando en este caso MexCham, entonces en específico preguntas del pabellón con nosotros también. Aquí pusimos en el chat el contacto de MexCham también,
Sí,
donde nos
sí.
pueden encontrar directamente. Ahí está.
De
Y
acuerdo.
Carla va a poner también su contacto.
Y nos interesaría a nosotros hablar obviamente, con Clip,
Claro.
tener una reunión aquí en la Ciudad de México con ustedes para ver qué están haciendo alrededor del mundo y pues darles más información de Hong Kong, y nos interesaría muchísimo que estuvieran por allá haciendo uno de los unicornios mexicanos, ¿no? Y con
Perfecto.
Susana, pues sí, todo lo del pabellón.
Encantados. Entonces me pongo en contacto con ustedes, Susana y Carla, para el pabellón y
Claro.
contigo, Víctor, para lo demás. Muchas gracias por la presentación. Gracias,
Claro.
King. Thank you, King.
Yeah, you're welcome.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Is it only for very mature startups or also early stage startups?
The short answer is we welcome fintechs of all stages. We just want to manage the expectation, because obviously from the big financial institution standpoint, if they want to bring in a fintech as an internal solution, then from past experience and observations, we recognize that the banks will work with more proven fintechs. It doesn't have to be like a big IBM. There has to be someone they have already got their own clients, not necessarily in Asia, even in other parts of the world. So it's a proven technology. Now, and then, and for them, they are, to be honest, I think there are certain firms like Standard Chartered, for example, they're very active in scouting for really cutting edge technologies, not necessarily just to cut costs, but also to try to introduce some new angle of revenue model. So definitely for them, they're welcome to work with any companies, but then their solutions have to be proven by the market. Therefore, you need to have commercial clients. Now, for the investors, they are also, as I just briefly mentioned, they span a pretty wide range. There are certain investors, they love to invest in early stages, because the early stages are the ones that can give them more upside. But all else equal, typically they would invest in Series A and up. Now for seed stage, they do invest in some seed stage, but it has to be a very extraordinary concept that they think, wow, this is going to change the world and so on. But generally speaking, Series A and up, they have the appetite to invest.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Muchas gracias. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Perfecto. Bueno, pues con gusto, terminando este webinar, les podemos enviar la información, tanto los slides de King como la información sobre los contactos de Invest Hong Kong en México, Invest Hong Kong en Hong Kong y la Mexican Chamber, para cualquier duda o información que requieran, ya sea sobre el sector fintech o sobre la participación en Fintech Week aquí en Hong Kong. Ernesto, ¿algo más que quisieras añadir?
Nada, también digo, cualquier información también la pueden canalizar a través de nosotros, o cualquiera de las fintechs también los podemos contactar directo, como les sea más fácil. Muchas gracias por las presentaciones. Creo que está muy interesante las conexiones que se pueden hacer. Y nada, pues ahí están los contactos. Aquí estamos nosotros para lo que podamos servir en este vínculo.
Perfecto, muchas gracias. Bueno, sí, no hay más preguntas. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, King, for presentation today. Very interesting. Thank you very much, MexCham. Thank you very much, Fintech Mexico. Thank you very much, Invest Hong Kong Mexico, for being here today. And thank you very much to all the fintechs who joined us today in this webinar. We hope to hear from you very soon. And we hope the information that we presented today is relevant for your business. Thank you very much.
Great.
Muchas gracias.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Gracias.
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 Thank
buenas
you.
tardes,
Nice to see
buen
you,
día.
King, again.
Yes.
Okay,
you,
good to see you,
gracias.
Victor, Aroa.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, Mr.
Yes.
Chao. Bye, Susana. Thank you.
Bye, Aurora. Gracias. que estés muy
Bye.
bien.
Thank you.
Gracias, buen día.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ernesto. Espero que haya sido importante lo que presentó este King, ¿no? Muy interesante.
La verdad es que sí, muy interesante y digo,